Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev. With Pokemon Sword and Shield right around the corner, I thought this would be a great time to scratch another one off my to-do list. This time, an idea to reimagine the traditional Pokemon battles. And weirdly, this idea was inspired by something that happens in Warframe of all places, which I don't want to spoil, but it's evolved since then and I think it's ready to be prototyped. So today we will start work on the idea, which will require not only a human player character, but also a controllable monster friend. And this monster friend will have its own control system for attacks. And for the first time ever, I'll be trying to map all of this to an actual gamepad. So expect slower progress than usual. Well, that's the plan. Let's get to the coding. First up, we needed some graphics. Now, in order to avoid any copyright issues, we won't be using any Pokemon or Nintendo content, so silly little doodles will have to do. And considering this is a prototype, it's completely fine for me to make the legendary Peekaboo a reality. Ooh, does that reference show my age? Anyway, doodles are done, so now we can get to the actual code. Movement has already been mapped to the D-pad and random keys mapped to the face buttons. And for future reference, I am using an Xbox controller. So the first thing up was to spawn our monster friend and be able to switch between the two. I did a check for the monster, and if it doesn't exist, to create it. If it already exists, we'd switch control. I noticed the Y button was a little awkward, so I mapped it to the left bumper instead. And so far things were going smoothly. We were able to switch between characters seamlessly, though clearly our camera code needed some work. So moving to my camera code, I had to check for its target. First the player, then the monster. The camera then would follow whichever character is currently being controlled by the player. This is definitely temporary since I can already feel this is going to get complicated later. But for now it worked and we could get back to our characters. Now currently my plan is to allow attacks in any direction, which would require a little indicator since we're not using the mouse. The next step was figuring out how analog sticks were handled in GameMaker. It seems to work similarly to keeping track of the mouse's position, only as I find out through trial and error, it's not relative to the character's position. More on that in a second. First, since both the player and monster shared so much code, I made a parent object to simplify things. This allowed me to easily draw a directional arrow based on whoever is being controlled. Now this code works as it should. Depending on the active character, an arrow is displayed showing which way it's going to attack. But as I said, because the position isn't relative, the attack direction snaps back to a 0-0 position anytime the stick isn't moving. And as a newbie when it comes to gamepad mapping, some research is definitely needed to figure this issue out. For now it would do, so I moved on. I created a simple square box which we are going to hopefully use for various attack hurt boxes by utilizing variables. Attaching to whatever spawns it, everything from attack duration to scaling is handled through the step code. And while I originally used alarms to determine duration, I eventually moved on to a step-based timer instead for better control in the future. I then spawned the hurt boxes through a script which would pass the necessary attack data through via arguments. And while not the most elegant result, it did work. However, due to the way we spawn and then mode the hurt box, it remains in a default state for a frame or two. I was able to get around this by disabling visibility on spawn and re-enabling it a frame or so later. Again, this works, but I'm not completely sold on it. Moving on, I added attacks of various sizes and durations to the other face buttons. The results were nice and surprisingly consistent, which was a relief. Now that we were capable of spawning one type of hurt box, I wanted to expand to other types, such as an AoE attack. So using the switch function and a type variable, I had type 1 completely change the hurt box's behavior. It basically repurposes our set of variables to work as an AoE attack. Originally, I had tried to create a position offset to nullify the whole directional thing, but after altering the hurt box's origin point to the absolute center, the results for both directional and AoE attacks worked and looked better. No weird offsets needed. So with that working, it was time to add one more variant, projectiles. And thanks to the way that we've set this whole thing up, all we needed to do was define the projectile's direction and add some motion to the hurtbox code. With that, we now had 3 different attack types. If we were to compare it to, say, a famous electric mouse, you could consider the directional attack a thunderous shock, and the AoE attack would be one big thunderous move. And the projectile attacks would be if that electric mouse were, instead a turtle, capable of creating painful bubbles. Yeah. Anyway, that was all the time I had for this session. A lot of familiar ground covered, but a lot of new covered as well. I'm still unsure about a lot of this, especially working with a gamepad, but I'm eager to stick with it and see how things go in the future. But in the meantime, remember that if you like this video or enjoy Let's Dev in general, be sure to hit that like button. If you aren't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. And as always, be sure to leave your thoughts on our progress in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.